and honor, beautiful soul. Today we are wrapping up our series on the Machiavelli mind, but specifically I will speak truth to power on spiritual warfare and generational adversaries. The Psychospiritual Electrochemical War on humanity. What we are involved in is nothing less than all-out spiritual warfare on a cosmic and multi-dimensional scale. Perhaps the best literal manifestation of our current induced containment and control system is the electrochemical invasion of our atmosphere via the chemtrail program. Many of our industrialized cities and states and countries, our land masses are overcome with chemtrails, and that is by design. And begun decades ago, our very breathing environment has been radically altered by massive dumping of electrically excitable nanoparticles and chemical toxins to not only restrain our connectivity and natural empowering energies, but transmits and maintains severely disempowering health, mental, and spiritual influences. And so understand that when a virus attacks an organism, antibodies are sent to destroy that threat. This is what happens in a natural, organic system. So there's no dealing with it except elimination. When your body experiences a virus or an infection, it attacks that threat. And so it looks at it like this needs to be exterminated, or the original organism's very life is in danger, and it doesn't need to be entertained, understood, or allowed to coexist with the host it's attacking. And the problem is, we want to cooperate and coexist with parasitic entities on a spirit level, energetic, spiritual level. So the nature of today's warring fronts on humanity are treated as issues, quote unquote, air quotes, issues and geopolitical problems to be debated as if the opposing force would ever offer any kind of understanding or consideration of our needs as humanity. And please understand that as I've spoken about this particular subject matter, the Machiavelli mind, the first two episodes, if you have not heard them, please go back and listen to volume 1 and then volume 2 and then this one, because it's kind of sequential. But in the first two, I deal with when you're dealing with being under attack by an enemy or an adversary or obstacle in your life, in the different forms that it may take. And so today I'm talking about being under attack by an enemy in the spirit realm. And you must understand and be able to grasp the fact that we are spirit beings having a human existence. So everything starts off in the spirit realm, and then it works its way to the physical realm. Nothing starts on the physical realm and then moves its way to it's never like that. So when you understand the spiritual ramifications of things, you can begin to make effective and efficient change. You can protect yourself. You can defend yourself. You can be prepared for whatever may come. Humanity does not understand the utterly invasive and death-dealing nature of our stealthy adversaries. And while we're walking around and and living and eating and sleeping and breathing and believing that, this person is your enemy because they have red skin, or that person is your enemy because they have brown skin or white skin, or that. What you don't realize is you have larger enemies that control the divide and conquer dynamic that causes us all to be at each other's necks, and even to be at our own necks, to hate ourselves, to hate and loathe and despise what we see in the mirror every morning. And that comes from the spirit realm. And I'm going to touch on that lightly, so that you can recognize it when you see it. It's almost like when you have problems with your car, before they can fix it, they have to diagnose it. When you're having an issue, you're having a cough or tightness in your chest, you have to go to a specialist to diagnose it and get an idea of what it is that you're dealing with, so you can protect yourself and defend yourself against whatever is attacking you. And so that's what we're dealing with today, is diagnoses. So the grand strategy of spiritual warfare has been to divide and conquer. That's the grand strategy. There are other strategies, but divide and conquer is so effective that, it's almost a win-win every time. And the divide and conquer on the human race collectively has worked by exploiting inherent vulnerabilities and weaknesses within us, because we're a lot like the animal kingdom, where we have classes and we have levels, kind of like in the game of chess. You have your king and you have your king and your queen, you have your pawns, you have your rooks, you have your bishops. And so both sides have the lower class and all the way on up to the untouchables, the very high ranking officials. And we see this in military. We see this on most of our jobs. We see this in society. You have the haves and you have the have-nots, and you have those in the middle who they have more than the have-nots, but they don't have as much power and influence and resources as the quote-unquote haves. And so you find yourself where you find yourself in that particular schism of things. But my question to you would be to question where that came about and why. Why are there classes? Why is there a class system? Why are there two-party systems? Or why are some systems just a monarchy? Why do you have a small group of people with all this power and control and wealth and money and resources, and then you have the masses, this huge landmass of people who lack power and real control, and they're scrambling around, fighting for think about that for a second. Most petty criminals who rob banks, or they kick in people's doors and rob people for flat screen TVs and Xboxes, and they're looking for small cash and Rolexes, jewelry, guns, things of that nature. When the big boys get ready to rob you, they rob whole countries. They rob whole generational wealth, gold, silver, diamonds, land, oil. They rob entire people. They steal people, whole nations of people. And have you ever just questioned and wondered where this came from? And I'm saying to you, I would submit to you that is a reflection of things that are happening in the spirit realm. As above, so below. And so what we experience below is what happens above. And for us, what we live out, it's experienced on a lower plane than us. Lower life forms, they sort of mimic and imitate what's going on here. So I know this is a bitter pill to have to swallow, but we must be mature enough to look the facts in the eye and not allow ourselves to be held in perpetual spiritual bondage by our own ignorance and wishful thinking. Because wishful thinking won't help you. It won't solve any of your problems. And the strategy of divide and conquer, again, manifests itself both in our personal lives and on a global macrocosmic scale. And so, as spiritual warriors, we must be mature enough to realize that our adversaries often know our weaknesses and vulnerabilities better than we do. It's kind of like your parents know you so well. They know they all parents know their children. You know what they're going to do before they do it, because they come from you. And sort of in a similar way, on an energetic spiritual level, spiritual giants, their thinking is just, it dwarfs us. And so they understand what we're going to do and how we think and how we operate. They've studied us for many, many centuries and many, 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 many decades and millennial even. And the strategy of divide and conquer has always been supreme. And we have to understand now more than ever, we must be wary of who or what we allow into our experience. Certain individuals are sent into our lives specifically to sow confusion and discord. Even when you look at the American presidential election, it is a fiasco. It's a kangaroo court. It's a circus, and that's by design. The people who are falling for it and believing that it's real are delusional, for lack of a better term. But whether your particular vulnerability is substance abuse, especially crack, meth, or whether your vulnerability is promiscuity or prostitution. And understand, some of you are prostitutes, you just don't get paid. But you're prostituting your body. You're prostituting your gifts and your talents and your energy. Your vulnerability may be disease, just persistent pestilence. You're wide open to plague of all manner. You name it. Alcoholism. Alcoholism is a disease and it's passed down genetically. The inclination for it, the desire and the love of it, until it utterly destroys you. That anything that you put into your body and you know that it's destroying you. And a lot of us suffer from this. A lot of us. And it's genetic. Your vulnerability may be that you're drawn to certain destructive lifestyles. The operative word being destructive. And abuse. Abuse is a big one. Especially incest, molestation, that type of thing. We see a lot of that. That's a generational type of curse. That's a generational adversary. It's a generational enemy. And we see it and it's swept under the rug. We don't talk about it. We don't address it. But all of these are all spawned from the same source. These all tend to travel in the bloodline. And so globalization and its underbelly, militarization, the police state, and all forms of fascism are spiritual warfare. Their roots begin in the spirit realm, but they're played out on earth. See, everything, again, let me reiterate this and I won't touch it again. Everything begins in the spirit realm. We are spirit beings having a human experience. So if you want to change anything, you have to change the spiritual component first. And the problem is, we've been tricked into believing we're our bodies, and that we can change things from the outside in, or physical to spiritual. And again, I reiterate, everything has to happen from top down, from spiritual to physical. Just like the tree of life is spiritual to physical. It is from the fall. It is from a spirit body, light body, manifesting and coming into physical, tangible stuff. And that's how things happen. So anytime you try to change things from the outside in, you're going to fall off. You're going to fail. If you try to stop drinking, you're alcoholic, and you try to stop drinking by just saying, I'm just going to stop drinking, and you try methods that affect your outer, you're going to always fall back on those habits. Or whatever your vulnerability is, whatever's attacking you, whatever you're dealing with that is destructive. Again, the operative word being destructive. And not only does it destroy you, it destroys anything that destroys you, destroys your ability to carry on your legacy, to carry on your lineage. And so if you can be destroyed in your tracks, then your bloodline stops right there. And that is the ultimate goal of spiritual warfare. Collectively, though, if you have enough people being destroyed, everybody can't be killed through warfare. Everybody can't be killed through mass disease and mass, and it's everywhere. It's in every aspect of our lives. And that's why in the last episode, I talked about how our world is controlled by psychopaths and sociopaths. And they have absolutely no remorse and they don't feel any type of way about the fact that massive amounts of people are poisoned and murdered and, whatever, daily. It's just the way it is. And we're taught to be okay with that. But remember, again, the only way to change things is from the inside out. You have to go within and fix what's wrong within. Fix what's wrong on the spirit level, and then it will change on the physical level. It's kind of like you looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see in the mirror. You don't like the image you see in the mirror. So you break the mirror and you're like, I don't like this. I don't like what I see. Well, how many of you know you have to change the image, that image first, and then the image you see in the mirror will change. Take a look at your neighborhood. A good look at your neighborhood.
He was a terrific guy.
Look at the way the housing is situated. Who lives in the big houses with the acreage and the land? Who lives on top of each other like sardines, packed on top of each other and next to each other? Are there things like liquor stores on every corners, or poverty? Or is it clean? Is there a lot of opportunity? Don't answer it. But just take note. Take a good look at your health, your self-esteem, your mindset. And in comparison with others in this world,
you can leave now.
where do you find yourself and those who look like you? Are you at the bottom? Are you the pinnacle? The middle? Think about what you've inherited. Think long and hard now. Think about what you've inherited and what you will give as your inheritance to your future generations. If you were to die tomorrow, what would you leave your children and your children's children? Is it gold, silver, land, real estate, businesses, or is it debt, disease, struggle, and hopelessness? And again, I'm not trying to come down on anyone. This is a no judgment zone. But I'm trying to get you to think critically about the Machiavelli mind and how this world system is Machiavellian in nature, and how you have to learn how to think Machiavellian to understand it and to survive it and to surpass it. Collectively, ask yourself, will we ever rise, or are we on our way out? While we conform to this entire world system, this world system is killing us off via the food in the form of GMOs. Many of us don't even eat real food anymore. Most of the food on the market, most of the food in the grocery store, most of the food at fast food restaurants and, places you go to and frequent is genetically modified. It's frankenfood. Our sources of food are denatured, grown full of pesticides and fungicides and insecticides, and the soil is denatured. All of the minerals have been pulled out of it. And so it's a real struggle and an uphill battle to just even eat real food, real organic, natural, self-sustaining food. It's in the water. And a few months ago, we just learned about how in the city of the city of Detroit in Michigan, how the water is contaminated with lead. But how many of you know they aren't the only ones? They just were uncovered and revealed. But there are several cities, not just in North America, but all over the world, where your water is contaminated. Different cities in India and different provinces and villages in sub-Saharan Africa and Central America, and where the water has been contaminated. It's in the air in the form of, as I mentioned earlier, the chemtrails. It's in the form of pestilence of all manner. And for the first time in history, we're beginning to learn about, on a wide open, transparent level, we're starting to see how biowarfare works, and how different militaries and governments have created biological organisms designed to take out whole nations. And sometimes those diseases and those plagues and those pestilence, they mutate, and they end up just destroying people that weren't even intended targets. But this is a very real thing, and this is spiritual warfare. And we have to discuss it. We have to address it. We can no longer put our heads in the sand and just act like it doesn't exist, and just act like it'll go away. We have to address it. And sadly, we've become comfortable in our bondage and we love our enemies. We love the warfare. We embrace it. It's a form of Stockholm syndrome. We love those who prosecute us and persecute us and kill us. We love this world system. Most people, when you talk to them about, just get off the grid and just, live off the land and start over, people will go crazy. They don't want to give up Pokemon Go. They don't want to give up internet. They don't want to give up Wi-Fi. They're not giving up their AC and their two-seat sports car. What? You crazy. They're not giving up their mansion on the hill. They're not giving those things up. And many of us don't even want to think about our carbon footprint and the level of waste that we create. But we have to pay the piper at some point. And so this talk is just I just want to drop something in your consciousness a little bit. And make you think about some things. And your government shows and proves what it thinks about you by virtue of litigation and policy in the land. Wherever you are. I don't care if you're in London. I don't care if you're in the United Kingdom, if you're in New York or Seattle. I don't care if you're in Bangladesh or Lebanon. You can tell how your government and the powers that be, what they think of you and how they think about you based on the policy in place for the people. And take a good look at your judicial system, the prison industrial system. How is it working out for you? How is it working out for us? And so this is a form of spiritual warfare manifesting on the earth realm. Prison itself, the idea, the concept. Because why are the people being put there in the first place? Most crimes, murderers and killers, you have to understand what goes into making that type of psyche. And we're all products of our environment. Prison itself is a form of spiritual warfare manifested on earth. How many of you know once upon a time, our ancestors didn't even have a concept of prison or having to put someone in jail in some type of, confinement. Because there were opportunities and there was enough for everyone. There's no need for a thief if you have plenty of food and clean water and shelter and opportunities and things to do for self. But when those things have been taken from you, you create the environment for thieves to manifest. When you have a have and have not system, when you have a class and case system, you're going to always have a lot of crime. When you take opportunities away from people, you take their resources and you take the food out of their children's mouths, you create an environment for people to go out and create havoc in order to have something and to eat. And few of you know Lucifer is very real. And Lucifer has been attempting to annihilate melanated people all over the globe for centuries. Centuries. Study your history. And look at the plight of indigenous people all over the globe. Hung, burned, raped, shot, stolen, set on fire, castrated, and used as a product, a commodity, traded on the auction block. And so our spiritual warfare comes in the form of all manner. But economic warfare is another huge one to look out for, especially in the coming years, in the coming days. Other forms of spiritual warfare include indoctrination, which begins in primary school. So if we can indoctrinate you to think the way we want you to think and think how we want you to think, we don't have to worry about you. Once the mind is confined and incarcerated, the body will follow. When I was younger, we used to say, oh, she has mind control over you, or he has mind control over you. When you have mind control, it's psychological. When you have mind control over someone, you don't have to worry about. They'll do what you want them to do. They fall right in the line with what you'll have them to do. Economically, our economic system, the class system itself, taking from the many to feed the few. The fact that 1%, less than 1% of the population has over 40% of the wealth of the entire entity. Am I the only one who sees an issue with that? Hello? Did I lose you? How is it okay for entire groups of the population to go hungry and without any provisions when there is more than enough to go around? Really think about this. Think critically. Ask yourself, what have you bought into? So again, we're talking about the Machiavellian mind and how this nation, this world is coordinated by sociopathic Machiavellian entities. Conquest, the entire concept of colonization or imperialism, is fascism. How one nation can go and just dominate another nation, first of all, to intrude upon them and their way of life and their customs, to steal the things of value from them, to steal their diamonds, to steal their gold, to steal their precious jewels, to steal their spices, and then sell it back to them. How many of you know that that's a form of spiritual warfare manifested in the earth? And it's been happening for centuries. And where we see materialism replacing religion, it's all about how much you got. And it's never enough. You never have the right phone, because every year you got to get a new phone. You got to get a bigger and better, more improved phone with a faster Wi-Fi and faster speed and a better camera and a better ability to just stun on other people. You got to have a bigger house and move into the bigger and better entity. You got to have a better TV than everybody else, or a better car, and you got to have better shoes. It's all about materialism. No one's happy with just having your needs met. Despotism in all modern progress. Worldwide wars. I touched on this last week and just made mention about how, we'll always see endless war. And you have to wonder why it is that way. It hasn't always been that way. If you go back about 400 or 500 years ago, there wasn't constant, ongoing, endless war. Now, there were battles, sure, there were civil wars. All countries have their small little civil wars and tit for tat, brother. That's like, brother and sister, sibling rivalry. Any of you who have brothers or sisters, you're going to fight with your brothers and sisters, Yeah, sure. He or she, they look like you, but they're getting on your nerves. They're encroaching on your stuff. You have to stand up and let them know who's boss. Okay. But we're talking about endless war where the wars are getting more and more expensive and the weaponry is getting more and more sophisticated. And I'm not even just talking about the warfare that you know about, that you hear about. I'm talking about the weaponry that you don't hear about. The stealth weapons that are being designed, the nuclear warheads are, insane. And you have to wonder, why would you even create a weapon that could cause so much devastation and bloodshed? But again, this system is led by psychopaths and sociopaths, and it's Machiavellian at its core. And I have to remind you and reiterate, remember, go back and read Machiavelli, The Prince. Read it. Read The Art of War by Sun Tzu so you can understand what you're dealing with. Because we're being wiped out collectively. The ignorant, those who are ignorant and don't know any better, will be wiped out. The totalitarian system that we know it as is spiritual warfare. Control of the press, mind control. Notice what you see in abundance on TV. I touched on this before a couple of podcasts back. I'm not gonna, lay in heavy on it. But television, as we know it, is a weapon. It is a weapon. Mind control is a form of spiritual warfare being played out in earth. Because with all of our modern technology, and how is it that you can have 600 channels and you have Amazon Prime and you have Netflix and you have all these documentaries and you have all of this television, and yet it's not improving your status. You're not making any more money. You're not You're not creating any more art. You're not improving the world. What is it for? Collectively. Distractions. Look at what we value. Look at what we tune into. Look at what we see of all the things that are happening in the world and all the things that you can discuss and talk about and spit truth to power and resonate with. What are the things that you're focusing upon? There's an assault on religion, and I'm not a religious person. But I don't have to attack a Muslim because two Muslims acted and showed their ass and act crazy. I don't have to go attack the entire nation of Islam or the entire, all the followers who follow Muhammad or Allah. And just because there are a couple of sour apple Christians doesn't mean you have to attack the entire institution of Christianity. But there is an all-out assault on religion. And for a long time, people used religion to act out maniacal, psychopath type Machiavellian shit. But now it's almost as though the opposite is being done. And you have to ask yourself, why? Ruthless suppression, especially of holistic healing and natural cures. You have to understand what is going on here. Why is it that anytime a scientist or doctor discovers a cure for cancer or a cure for HIV/AIDS or a cure for sickle cell or autism, and they found a way to bypass and go into the genetic material and heal it from the inside out, and then all of a sudden they come up missing, they come up dead in their sleep, or quote unquote suicide. Why? People don't just die. Yeah, life is hard, and there's times where you want to just be done with it, but people don't just die like that. Natural, healthy, normal people don't just fall over and just die without cause. And you have to understand why this is happening, because on an energetic level, you have entities working on a parasitic level with all manner of sickness and ways to just demolish us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. And if you have somebody coming against that saying, hey, I have a way to re-energize you and to clean you up and get you on your feet, and in fact undo all of this other shit, they're gonna wipe them out. That's why none of your elected officials will ever do anything, say anything, or offer you anything to empower you. Be that to empower you to be wealthy, to empower you to heal yourself, to empower you and educate and enlighten you on why you're taxed into the ground. Have you ever thought about that? And just understand where all of this is coming from, and formulate your own opinion about it. Don't just take what I'm saying, but formulate your own opinion and think about it and go and do your own research and put two and two together for yourself. Loans and credit. I said economic warfare is a form of spiritual warfare, all designed to keep the masses steeped in debt. Because if you have a debt slave, you have a wage slave. And once you have someone in bondage to debt, and they're in debt from cradle to grave, and they will be paying you. Imagine if you had 100,000 people paying you various amounts of money every month for the rest of your life. And yeah, sure, that feels wonderful. The idea of that, you would never have to work again, because you'd have all your needs and things taken care of financially because someone else is taking care of it. But what is the trade-off on that? And what I'm speaking on here is things like interest rates. Why is it that if You take a child who's barely in college good. You give them a credit card and you say, hey, you can spend $1,000 on this credit card. But once all the fees and all the junk fees and things, now they have to pay back almost $2,500, $3,000. But they were given credit. Here, we're saying you can spend this money, but this is what you're going to have to pay back. And when you multiply that by thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, can you see the game being played? Can you see the level of pimpery happening? And it's the same way with taxes. Interest rates, usury, and taxation. Because once upon a time, we didn't have to pay income taxes. And when you think about this, when you go to the store, you buy a roll of toilet paper, you're going to pay a tax on that. You buy a gallon of milk, you're going to pay a tax on that. You go buy a hamburger, you're going to pay a tax on that. And then when you buy a house, you're going to pay a tax on that. And you buy a car, you're going to pay a tax on that. And every year, you're going to pay a tax on that. And then every dollar that you make, you're going to pay a tax on that. Whether they say taxes and death. But if you ever asked yourself, why? Who is this money going to? What is it financing? What is it buying you? They say, oh, that's to fix and maintain the street lights and the bridges and the roads. To contribute to Medicare and Medicaid and now Obamacare and all these other things going on. But who's getting this money? Have you ever asked yourself that? Where is this money going? Just trying to get you to think. The power of gold, or the almighty dollar. Someone once said G-O-D in this world stands for gold, oil, and diamonds. Now, I don't know if I agree with that or not, but it's very interesting. The power of the dollar. And greed sits at the very pinnacle of the pyramid of spiritual warfare. In God we trust. In God we trust. Gold, oil, diamonds. Cash rules everything around me. It's all about the dollar bill. It's all about the peso. It's all about the yen. The dinero. It's all about the money. And so the only protection from spiritual warfare is prayer, meditation, and a strong will, a consistent, strong will. Consistent. I cannot reiterate that. And so that's all, folks. We're wrapping up the Machiavelli mind. I suggest you go back again if you have not already done so. Please take a look at The Prince, written by Niccolo Machiavelli. Read The Art of War, Sun Tzu, and go within if you have not already done so and you have not already begun to meditate and to learn to properly pray and set the tone for your day each day and each night, because you have to guard against the things that are coming against you on a spirit realm, because you are a spirit being first. And that's all I have for you. Peace and blessings. I'll see you next week.